At no point did I think I'd be having back and forth emails with the president of the UCI. Good morning and welcome to a beautifully sunny ride again in Essex on a Sunday morning. And what a group we've got with us today. This is the biggest group we've had out for a very long time, so that is a definite sign that the weather is improving. Having said that, it is still 4 degrees this morning and my weather app tells me it feels like 1. What's that in Fahrenheit? Double it at 30. About 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So I have actually brought my rain jacket with me this morning, just in case I need to use it as a windbreaker to try and keep warm. Thankfully, I've not needed it just yet, but it is very, very cold. But that aside, I've got some very big and hopefully very exciting news to impart today. But before we talk about that, can we talk about the fact that I'm still struggling on my gravel bike with its big, knobbly 43mm tyres. Now, I might be at the front of the group at the moment, but that's only because we've only just started and the fellas are still in party pace, conversation pace behind me. It won't be long before they're absolutely schlepping off in front of me and then having to stop to let me catch up. But to give you an update on that situation, a couple of days ago I removed the 40 right shifter from my road bike and sent it back to Wheeltop, and they've emailed me to say they've sent me another one to replace it. So I'm hoping in the next week or so I should receive that, be able to put it back on and get back out on the road bike. But in the meantime, given that the dirty reaver ride is now just 3 weekends away, and I genuinely don't know how that's come around so quickly, but yeah, just 3 weekends away now, so being out on this gravel bike is probably good practice. And to be fair, I need as much practice and training as I can get at the moment. But massive props again to Wheeltop for sorting the issue out with my shifter. As I mentioned before, with modern day electronics, these things can go wrong and do go wrong, but it's how a company deals with it that's the real test of them. So kudos to Wheeltop for getting it sorted so quickly and trying to get me back on the road. Nice one. Talking of fitness and dirty reaver though, I'm thinking of getting back on Zwift and doing another 4-week FTP booster like I did for London to Paris last year. Although, as I say, I won't have a complete 4 weeks to do it, but I did start to feel really strong after about 2 weeks doing that. So even if I only get it done partially, that will be a benefit. But let me know if you've got any other ideas of how I can improve my fitness and make myself quite a bit stronger in just 3 weeks before the reaver. Comments below would be appreciated. Right, let's get on with this ride a little bit further and then we'll have a chat about my super important news. Right, well that was a beautiful breakfast done at our favourite spot, the mixing shed. And we're now about 30k into this ride and we've probably got another 15-20k back. But one thing I forgot to point out this morning is that I've got my buddy Dale along on the ride today. He's come down from Darlington for the weekend and he dropped me a message a couple of weeks ago to say, I'm coming down, I'm going to join you for a ride. How are you enjoying your Essex trip so far?
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
So I'm showing him the lanes of Essex. They're not quite as lumpy as Darlington in Durham, but what can we do? So you would have seen Dale in a couple of my videos now, but chief amongst which is the North London dirt ride from last year, which was the ride that killed my old gravel bike. And both of us said on that ride,
never again.
Never again. And what happens?
Again.
And my buddy Kofi, who runs the Ride for Unity organisation, which is an absolutely fantastic organisation just trying to get anyone and everyone into cycling and show that cycling is literally for everyone. And he is normally the ride leader for that ride, but unfortunately he can't make it this year, so he called me up and said, would I be able to lead it? And I said to him, look, if by a leader you want someone to bring the vibes, bring the good time and just have a proper party vibe, then I'm your man. If you want a leader that's gonna lead and sit at the front of the pack, yeah, I think I'll leave the chat at that point. So yeah, perhaps stupidly, unwisely, Dale and I have signed back up for the North London dirt ride again this year. So that's yet another dirt ride that I need to improve my fitness for. Right, well I still haven't spoken to you about the super important news because, as usual, I've just been enjoying these beautiful sunny country lanes. So let's get back home, I can have a sit down and have a proper chat with you about my important news. Right, well there we go, another lovely 45 kilometres done this morning in glorious conditions. And I have to apologise because I never set out to be one of those people that makes you watch to the end of the video, and that wasn't my intention today, but it was just so beautiful riding along with the lads, seeing my buddy Dale that I haven't seen for a long time, and so I just didn't get to record too much, and yeah, I didn't get to say much. But now we're back, I can have a chat with you about what I think is a very important thing for the cycling community, and I'd love for you guys to get involved. So the news is all to do with the Tour de France, and even if you're not a fan of watching bike racing, I would urge you to stick with me, because I think this is something that affects the whole cycling community in the UK, whether you're an avid weekend warrior, a semi-pro, or even a leisure cyclist or commuter. So the thing is with the Tour de France, it has been shown on free-to-air TV, either on Channel 4 or ITV, since the early 80s, and if you've wanted to watch it, you could always tune in to either of those channels to watch the full live version of the race. And of course they are commercial TV channels, so there would be the odd advert every now and then, but otherwise it was a complete version of the race that you could watch from start to finish. Now for those who didn't want to watch it with adverts, or I know there are some people that weren't particularly keen on the ITV commentators, there was the option of watching it on GCN Plus, which was aligned with Eurosport, and you could watch that for about £7 a month, which I thought was incredibly good value, and I've done that myself for the last couple of years, paying the £7 for the month covering July and August when the tour is on. However, this year 2025 will be the last year for about 40 years that you'll be able to watch the Tour de France free of charge on terrestrial TV, because broadcasting rights for the race have been bought by TNT Sports, which is a subsidiary of Warner Brothers Discovery, which also owns Eurosport, and ITV have said that they're not bidding for the broadcast rights, therefore they won't be showing it. Well, initially I thought, well, that won't be too bad, because for the last couple of years, as I say, I've been watching it by paying £7 a month anyway, so it's not going to be too bad paying another £7 to watch it again this year. However, Warner Brothers Discovery, having now got the monopoly on cycling racing in the UK, have upped the cost 343% to £30.99 a month, which I think is absolutely criminal. And it's not just fans of the men's tour that are affected, because fans of Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift, of which I am one as well, are also having to stump up £31.99 a month. And while the women's tour has always been behind a paywall, as I mentioned earlier, it was only £6.99 before, so again, having to pay £31 a month now is just as egregious. But Tour de France aside, Warner Brothers Discovery now have the right to pretty much every major monument and tour race. Aside from the fact that I think that that is a huge monopoly which legally shouldn't be allowed in the UK, the price increase alone is just ridiculous. I'm not the only one who thinks so, and there are thousands of cycling fans across the country who are absolutely furious at now being forced to pay just under £400 a year. To that end, I've gone and done something that I never thought would be in my nature, because I've never considered myself any kind of activist, but I've started an official UK government petition to get the Tour de France back on free-to-air television. Now, what can the government do, and how is it in any way their responsibility, I hear you ask? Well, the one thing that they can do is make the Tour de France a Category A sporting event, exactly the same as the FIFA World Cup, the Rugby World Cup, the Olympics, Wimbledon, any major sporting event like that, where a large number of people will be interested in watching it, and therefore it's protected under the Broadcasting Act of 1996, and it must be shown on free-to-air television. Now, I don't want to get political, but I've really got no faith in the political classes in this country, but I think if enough of us show how much of an ill feeling there is about this, we can make a little bit of a difference, even if it's just to show Warner Brothers Discovery the strength of feeling and how much revenue they may be losing from cycling fans who are only interested in watching cycling and none of the other sports that are available on the £30.99 package per month. And actually, when I started the petition, I didn't know just how many people would be signing up, and I thought maybe it might crash and burn. However, as I record this, the petition has only been live for 5 days, and we are only a shade under 10,000 signatures, which is the first mark where we will get some kind of response from the government. If we end up hitting 100,000 signatures, then it will have to be debated in Parliament, and the government will have to take some kind of stance on it. And as part of me trying to drum up support for the cause, I've contacted a number of British pro-cycling figures, both riders themselves and people from the wider cycling community. And I'm happy to say that I've had some really great responses. Chris Froome has shared my post on Instagram to his story, and we got a huge boost in numbers of signatures just after we did that. And an even bigger sign of just how far the ill feeling of this goes, I've had a number of back and forth emails with former UCI president Brian Cookson, and he has supported it as well, and he's shared it on every one of his social media channels, including LinkedIn. And he mentioned that a few people from Warner Brothers Discovery had checked his profile out on LinkedIn recently, so he's hoping that that really puts the cat amongst the pigeons, and Warner Brothers Discovery should certainly be aware of the petition. Now, as I said at the beginning of this, even if you're not a fan of watching cycle racing on TV, this will affect you, I believe, because a lack of visibility of the sport in the country leads to a lack of take-up of cycling from younger generations, and with less people cycling, there's therefore less interest from the government, there's less funding, there's less infrastructure, and ultimately that affects every cyclist, because British cycling is already in dire straits in this country, with St Piran, the last UCI continental team, having gone bust at the tail end of last year. So with a lack of TV coverage of the biggest race in the cycle calendar, and with that being a huge inspiration and motivator for people to get out on bikes over the years, I think it is going to do massive harm to cycling funding and cycling in general across the country. So whether you are a leisure cyclist, whether you commute to work, a weekend warrior, or you're looking to try and go pro, I don't think it's overstating it to say that a lack of Tour de France and all pro cycling coverage is going to harm your interests. So if you are into cycling in any way, I would urge you to please go and sign the petition, and if it doesn't get anywhere with the government, if nothing else, it will show Warner Brothers Discovery just how strong a feeling there is amongst the cycling community. I'll leave the link down below so you can go and check it out and go and support the petition yourself. Regardless of your age, it's not an over 18 only thing, so if you've got kids that are into cycling, get them to sign it as well, because ultimately they are the next generation and they're the ones that are also missing out. So thank you so much in advance. I really appreciate every single signature we can get to show just how angry we all are about this, and hopefully, you never know, we might be able to get the Tour de France back on free-to-air television. And also, if there's any people out there who know any big sporting figures or anyone influential that can spread the word and try and get us some more signatures on this petition, then I would absolutely love it if you could tag them and ask them to sign and share the petition themselves. So that's it, that's my big news. We're doing really well so far. As I say, we're nearly at 10,000 signatures, and I would love to get some kind of initial response from the government, even if we don't manage to get to 100k. So as I say, links in the description below. I'm excited to see where this petition goes and just how much we can achieve. So as I say, thank you very much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Ride safe. Take care, guys. Yeah, I definitely need to do some more hill training.